The auto industry is facing an unprecedented shakeup, and it's not coming from abroad, but right here at home. President Trump's plan to impose a 25% tariff on all cars not made in the United States has triggered a crisis in Detroit and beyond. If a vehicle is built in the U.S., there's no tariff. But imported cars and parts are slapped with a hefty 25% tax. What started as quiet talks behind factory walls soon exploded into a wave of shutdowns, layoffs, and stalled production lines across America's industrial heartland. Ford Motor Company, once the symbol of American manufacturing might, took a blow few expected. On May 17th, Ford announced it was closing several iconic U.S. assembly lines. The Chicago plant, where the Explorer and Lincoln Aviator were once produced by the thousands, went silent. Meanwhile, Michigan's Bronco and Ranger assembly lines came to a halt, leaving thousands of workers uncertain and waiting for calls that might never come. This wasn't due to foreign competition, but the tariffs themselves, a policy meant to punish China and Mexico, but ended up striking a harsh blow to American factories instead. Ford warned that these tariffs could cost the company over $1.5 billion in earnings in 2025 alone. That kind of financial hit is tough for any business to absorb, even one as large as Ford. The shutdowns didn't stop with Ford. General Motors scrambled to adjust, laying off hundreds while quietly moving some truck production back to Indiana. Stellantis, which owns Chrysler and Dodge, idled plants in Canada and Mexico. But the ripple effect hit the U.S. hard, especially in Michigan and Indiana, where 900 component plant workers lost their jobs overnight. Ford tried to soften the blow. Prices on Mexican-made models like the Mustang Mach-E, Maverick, and Bronco Sport went up nearly $2,000 to help cover tariff costs. But customers and dealerships felt the sting immediately, and even this wasn't enough. Behind closed doors, executives warned more cuts could be on the way. The tariffs drove up costs across the board, from steel to electronics. The Lincoln Nautilus, imported from China, became too expensive to sell competitively, forcing Ford to halt exports to China entirely. Losing access to one of the world's largest auto markets sent a clear message. This trade war was no longer hypothetical. It was reality, and it was hurting. When pressed about Ford's shutdowns, Trump dismissed the concerns. He called the disruptions expected and doubled down, saying companies should have brought production back a long time ago. His blunt America First stance sent chills through auto industry boardrooms. If Ford's collapse could be shrugged off, who was next? If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more updates and content. We've got plenty more coming your way. Signs of strain were everywhere. Stellantis paused SUV production in Mexico for a whole month, halting parts supply and assembly. Workers fell silent as layoffs hit 5 stamping plants in the U.S., draining morale. Unions, once quiet, now openly criticized management. Survival was the priority, not pressure. At GM's Fort Wayne truck plant, where Silverado and Sierra pickups are built, the company fought back. They added shifts, hired 200 workers, and restarted a plant that had paused for retooling, all to build more trucks domestically and avoid tariffs. For now, this worked, but it was a temporary fix. Without adapting supply chains long-term, even loyal plants face risk. Other automakers felt the heat. Nissan canceled U.S. orders for some SUVs made in Mexico. Toyota slowed shipments. Honda raised prices. The tariff storm wasn't passing. It was intensifying. Customers noticed. New car prices jumped over 2.5% in April alone, the highest spike in years. Dealerships warned buyers rushed to sign contracts before prices climbed again. But inventory thinned, deliveries stalled, and popular models disappeared from lots. Ford made a desperate move, offering employee pricing to the public, a tactic usually reserved for tough times. The goal was to keep sales steady despite soaring costs. But this gamble only bought time. Auto parts from Mexico became 25% more expensive. Cars assembled in Canada faced border taxes. Components from China, including batteries and chips, saw duties up to 30%. Companies dependent on these supplies were squeezed to the edge. Ford CEO Jim Farley called this the fairest fight in decades, trying to put a positive spin on a brutal situation. But behind the scenes, Ford cut forecasts, slashed guidance, and struggled to explain to shareholders how a company building nearly 80% of its vehicles in America was still losing money. Then layoffs hit cities like Cook County, Illinois, and Toledo, Ohio. Workers spared during the last recession finally felt the pain. Component plants closed, entire shifts disappeared, and communities dependent on those jobs, diners, grocery stores, repair shops, began to suffer. At the state level, governors called emergency meetings. Indiana's labor boards issued warnings about rising unemployment. Michigan mayors pleaded with Washington for relief, but tariffs remained firmly in place. Wall Street reacted with disbelief. Auto stocks faltered, supplier shares crashed, and analysts warned that if tariffs continued, the industry could lose more than 1 million sales in 2025 alone. Washington's message? No changes. The administration insisted the pain was temporary and that factories would eventually reopen. But inside the industry, no one was holding their breath. Ford reconsidered future product launches. GM reassigned engineers. Stellantis froze hiring. The whispers of trouble had become a scream. Is this really what America first looks like? The losses go beyond money. It's momentum. North America's auto industry was once a marvel, a tightly woven network of suppliers and factories across 3 countries, producing tens of millions of vehicles. Now that system is cracking. Ford can't just shift all production back to the US overnight, and neither can GM. These supply chains were built over decades, optimized for speed and cost. Breaking them apart isn't just expensive, it's risky. Yet tariffs are forcing companies to make choices based not on efficiency, but survival. Shift production here, pause shipping there, cancel orders, raise prices, hope for the best. Through it all, workers are the ones caught in the crossfire. For every job gained in Indiana, another is lost in Michigan. For every extra shift added in Fort Wayne, another is paused in Windsor. It's a shell game, and the pieces are running out. The political divide widens. Trump insists the fight is worth it. Democrats say the cost is too high. Meanwhile, workers watch their paychecks shrink and futures dim. And what's next? The industry braces for retaliation. China has already hit back with tariffs on American cars. Exports dry up. Overseas buyers turn to Korean and European models. American cars become too costly abroad and possibly soon at home too. Ford isn't gone yet, but it's reeling like never before. The workers who built this company, who devoted decades and raised families on these wages, are left asking the question no one wants to answer. Was it worth it? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget like and subscribe for the latest updates on global politics.